Picture this. It's 1994. Mel Brooks is directing his latest vampire comedy, and Frank Langella walks onto set like he's performing Shakespeare at the Globe Theater. Brooks takes one look at him and knows this isn't going to work. What happened next became one of Hollywood's most fascinating professional divorces. But Langella wasn't the only one. At 99 years old, Mel Brooks has worked with hundreds of actors. But there are 5 who taught him that sometimes even genius can't overcome a personality clash. Before we dive into these fascinating Hollywood stories, hit that subscribe button if you love vintage Hollywood tales, because we're about to reveal the actors who made comedy's greatest directors say never again. For over 7 decades, Mel Brooks transformed American comedy. From Your Show of Shows to Spaceballs, from The Producers to Young Frankenstein, he didn't just make movies. He created universes where chaos and control danced together in perfect rhythm. But here's what most people don't know. Brooks had one unbreakable rule. You could be brilliant, you could be famous, you could even be his friend, but if you couldn't serve the comedy, you were out. No second chances, no explanations. Just a quiet exit and a permanent place on his never again list. Think about it. This is a man who launched careers, who turned nobodies into legends, who could spot talent from across a crowded room. But he also had an almost supernatural ability to sense when someone would poison the creative well. And when that happened, Brooks didn't explode. He didn't create drama. He simply closed the door permanently. Today, we're opening those doors to reveal the 5 actors Mel Brooks refused to work with again, and the real reasons why. Let's start with the most dramatic casting change in Brooks's career. Frank Langella should have been perfect for Dracula, dead and loving it. He'd won Tony Awards, he'd played Dracula on Broadway to standing ovations. He had the voice, the presence, everything. But Brooks wasn't looking for Hamlet in a cape. He wanted someone who could slip on a banana peel while delivering a monologue about eternal life. From day one, the chemistry was off. Langella treated every line like sacred text. During rehearsals, while other actors were improvising and finding the comedy, Langella stood there like a marble statue, delivering his lines with the gravity of a funeral director. Brooks tried everything. Private conversations, gentle suggestions, even rewriting scenes to accommodate Langella's style. Nothing worked. The breaking point came during a simple test scene. Brooks had written a classic setup. Dracula delivers a dramatic speech that ends with him accidentally sitting on a wooden stake. It was pure Brooks genius. Langella read it, paused, and asked, "Are we mocking the character?" Brooks stared at him for what crew members described as the longest 10 seconds in Hollywood history, then replied, "No, we're finding the humanity in the absurdity." By Friday, Langella was gone. No press release, no public drama. Leslie Nielsen stepped in and understood immediately what Brooks wanted. Play it completely straight while the world goes insane around you. That's the secret Langella never grasped. In Brooks's world, the best comedy comes from actors who believe they're in a drama. This one hurt differently. Gene Wilder wasn't just an actor to Brooks. He was family. Together, they'd created some of cinema's greatest comedic moments. The Producers, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein. These weren't just successful films. They were revolutions in comedy. Wilder understood Brooks's rhythm like no one else. He could finish Brooks's thoughts, improve his punchlines, and somehow make the insane seem perfectly logical. But after Young Frankenstein, everything changed. Wilder had written most of that script, and its massive success gave him confidence. He had another script ready, The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes's Smarter Brother. He wanted to direct it himself, and he wanted Brooks to produce it. Brooks read it, liked it, but told Wilder the truth as he saw it. "You're not ready to direct." Those 4 words destroyed a friendship. Wilder saw it as betrayal from someone who should have supported him unconditionally. Brooks saw it as honest advice from someone who cared too much to lie. Here's what makes this fascinating. Wilder went ahead and made the film without Brooks. It had Marty Feldman, Madeline Kahn, all the right pieces, but something was missing. That indefinable magic that happened when Brooks and Wilder collaborated. The film did okay, but it wasn't Young Frankenstein. It wasn't even close. They didn't speak for years. No public feud, no tell-all interviews, just silence between two men who'd once been inseparable. When they finally met again at an industry event, witnesses say they shook hands, told a few jokes, and found something resembling friendship, but they never worked together again. Brooks later said losing Wilder as a collaborator was like losing a piece of his creative soul. Sometimes the people who know us best know exactly where to cut deepest. Now here's a unique one. An actor Brooks banned before they ever worked together. Chevy Chase's name came up repeatedly in the 80s and 90s. Studios loved him, audiences loved him, his films made money. But Brooks had a sixth sense about people, and with Chase, every alarm bell was ringing. Brooks had observed Chase carefully over the years, on talk shows, at industry events, through stories from mutual friends. What he saw was an actor who didn't play well with others. Chase had a reputation for making sets uncomfortable, for needing to be the smartest person in every room, for cutting down scene partners with perfectly timed cruelty. The closest they came to working together was during casting for Spaceballs. The studio pushed hard for Chase as Dark Helmet. He had the deadpan delivery, the name recognition, everything that should have made him perfect. Brooks shut it down immediately. "I need someone who elevates others," he told the casting director, "not someone waiting for everyone else to stop talking." He chose Rick Moranis instead, and if you've seen Spaceballs, you know that was the right choice. Moranis understood ensemble comedy. He could steal a scene while still making everyone else look better. That's what Brooks needed. Not the funniest person, but the most generous. There was one reported meeting between Brooks and Chase at a Beverly Hills restaurant. Witnesses say it lasted about 15 minutes. Brooks was polite, professional, and when Chase pitched himself for future projects, Brooks smiled and said, "Maybe in another universe." That universe never materialized. Brooks once said in an interview, without naming names, "Some actors are so busy watching themselves perform, they forget to actually be in the scene." When the interviewer asked if he meant Chevy Chase, Brooks just smiled and changed the subject. In comedy, timing is everything. And sometimes the best timing is never. This one's complicated because Harvey Korman was genuinely brilliant. Watch him in Blazing Saddles or History of the World Part 1, and you'll see comedy genius at work. But behind that talent was a fundamental clash with how Brooks ran his sets. Korman came from the Carol Burnett show, where improvisation was king, where sketches could evolve during performance, where he had creative freedom. Brooks's sets were different. He directed like a conductor with a very specific symphony in mind. Every beat, every pause, every gesture had its place. Their biggest conflict came during High Anxiety. Korman wanted to build his character from scratch. New mannerisms, altered dialogue, expanded scenes. Brooks kept saying no. "The comedy is already in the script," he told Korman. "I just need you to deliver it." For someone used to creative collaboration, this felt like being put in a cage. The tension affected everything. Korman would question blocking, debate line readings, pause between takes to discuss motivation. Brooks, who usually loved creative discussion, started communicating through his assistant. The set that should have been filled with laughter became a negotiation table. Crew members compared it to watching a marriage slowly dissolve. The work was still brilliant because Korman was too professional to let personal tension affect his performance. But Brooks never forgot the exhaustion of fighting for every scene. After High Anxiety, Korman's name disappeared from Brooks's films. No dramatic announcement, just a quiet understanding that they'd gone as far as they could together. Korman continued praising Brooks publicly for years, and Brooks never said a negative word about Korman's talent. But they both knew the truth. Sometimes two giants can't share the same space without destroying what they're trying to create. Of all the actors Brooks refused to work with, Jerry Lewis might be the most interesting because on paper, they should have been perfect together. Both were comedy innovators. Both wrote and directed their own material. Both understood physical comedy at a molecular level. But Brooks saw through the legend to the man underneath, and what he saw made him say no repeatedly. The issue wasn't talent, it was ego. Lewis had a reputation for taking over productions, rewriting scenes on the fly, treating directors like assistants. Brooks had spent decades building his authority as a director. He wasn't about to hand it over to anyone, no matter how legendary. The breaking point came in the mid-'80s when Brooks was developing Life Stinks, a satire about a wealthy man forced to live on the streets. The studio pushed Lewis hard for a supporting role. They promised it would bring prestige, ensure box office success. Brooks's response was immediate and final. "I don't need someone who thinks he's funnier than the film." They met exactly once, at a dinner arranged by mutual friends. Lewis showed up 30 minutes late, launched into a monologue about the death of American comedy, and barely acknowledged Brooks's presence. Brooks listened politely, excused himself early, and never entertained the idea of working with Lewis again. Here's what's fascinating. Brooks admired Lewis's work. He respected the nutty professor, understood the genius of the bellboy, but he also understood that genius without collaboration is just expensive chaos. In Brooks's world, the film was bigger than any one person, including himself. Brooks once told a close friend that working with Lewis would have been like trying to conduct an orchestra where one musician insisted on playing a different song. The music might be beautiful, but it wouldn't be what you set out to create. Today, at 99 years old, Mel Brooks is still working, still creating. He's executive producing a Spaceballs sequel, developing new projects, proving that age is just a number when you have stories to tell. But these 5 actors remain permanently outside his creative circle, not because he holds grudges, but because he learned long ago that chemistry matters more than talent. What's remarkable is how Brooks handled each situation. No public feuds, no tell-all revelations, no dramatic confrontations. Just a quiet decision to protect his creative process. In an industry that thrives on drama, Brooks chose dignity. The lesson here isn't about being difficult or holding grudges. It's about knowing your process, protecting your vision, and understanding that not every talented person belongs in every project. Brooks built his career on controlled chaos, but the key word was always controlled. When someone threatened that balance, he didn't fight. He simply moved on. Think about your own life. How many times have you forced a collaboration that wasn't working? How many projects have suffered because you were afraid to say, "This isn't right"? Brooks teaches us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is close a door, even when there's talent on the other side. These 5 actors went on to have successful careers. Brooks went on to make more masterpieces. Nobody was destroyed, nobody was ruined. They simply weren't meant to create together. And in recognizing that, Brooks protected not just his films, but his sanity, his process, and ultimately, his legacy. As we celebrate Mel Brooks approaching his 100th birthday, these stories remind us that even in comedy, boundaries matter. You can respect someone's talent without inviting them into your creative space. You can admire someone's work without working with them. And sometimes, the best collaboration is the one that never happens. So who do you think should have made this list? Which actor would you never work with, no matter how talented? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed these behind-the-scenes Hollywood stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more vintage Hollywood secrets. Because in Tinseltown, the most interesting stories are the ones that were never supposed to be told.